sell ice like that?
All right.
That's the hack? I don't know.
Welcome to our live stream. We got started we just got started exactly on time today. Not a few minutes late. We usually start a few minutes early. Welcome folks to the stream. We were rapidly preparing our mint and our ice. So here we are. Welcome. As you all are tuning in, drop your name in the chat like usual. Let us know who's here. We always like to find out who's in our audience and who's chatting with us today. I am here with Meghan Balser, who is somebody that we've known for, I don't know how many years. Since you were at
8 or 9 years.
Yeah.
I started at 7 Grand in 2012. So like 8 years.
Yeah, we would go and
Nice
sit at the bar in 7 Grand, which if you've been to San Diego and you like whiskey, you probably know about it. Hey John, hey Burgeon, hey Jamie. We got some regulars here today. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I'm Rachel Eva. Welcome to the Cocktail Journey. I think this is our 13th live stream this year.
Lucky 13.
And yeah, it's fantastic. Meghan has been here once before, but I unfortunately was not able to be here, so I'm so excited to be with her tonight. And we're doing mint juleps, which there's a lot to cover. So we're going to get started pretty quickly into making a mint julep. But please continue to let us know as you sign in who's here. Hey, Steve, we've got New Jersey. We've got New Hampshire. We've got Austin. Hey, Matt, good to see you. Hey, Daniel and Christina. Thanks for being here. We're so excited. We have this like special Woodford Reserve Kentucky Derby edition. So for those of you who are familiar with the Kentucky Derby lore around the mint julep, the Kentucky Derby is this Saturday, and the mint julep is the official cocktail of the Kentucky Derby, and Woodford Reserve is the official bourbon that is used in the official mint juleps at the official Kentucky Derby. So if you want to go all official,
The official bottle.
you can do that with us. But really, the mint julep is a cocktail you can make with any bourbon that you have. It's a very simple cocktail that is basically bourbon and sugar and mint. And so whatever bourbon you have is going to really like come forward and be highlighted. There's not a lot of competing flavors. So pick one you like, make along with us. And I'm going to let Meghan do a little intro to the cocktail, and I'll drop the recipe specs in the chat, and then we'll probably have to talk about crushed ice before we actually start getting into the cocktail, right?
Yeah.
So
you might want to prep your ice first, so it's ready to be put in the cocktail. We have some pre-crushed ice, but you do have a Lewis bag.
I do. So if you are in a place where you don't have the ability to buy or obtain crushed ice, you got to make some crushed ice at home. It's pretty critical for this drink, right?
I would say so.
I think I was at a friend's house one time. I was going to say my sister's house, but I don't want her to think I'm throwing her under the bus. But we didn't have like anything to crush ice with, and we're like, we'll just make one with the ice from the refrigerator.
Not the same.
It's just not the same. It's not the same. And
I
think
the full experience.
And why is that? Is it because we want this drink to like really dilute and get all sweet and sugary? Like, what do you love about this cocktail?
I think it's pretty booze heavy. It's pretty spirit forward. So you do need that ice to kind of dilute it a little bit. And it just gets better with time. It just gets better as you sip it. And it's a really good cocktail to have ice cold over crushed ice.
Yep.
In a julep cup.
So a couple of things to think about. Let me drop this here. It's 2 ounces of bourbon. Mm-hmm. We decided on a 1/4 ounce of rich simple syrup. Mm-hmm. But if you like sweet drinks, that's one of those things you can play with, is you can go 1/4 half, depending on how sweet you like yours. I feel like we're talking about the specs at some of the restaurants, and you said you felt like maybe the one at 7 Grand was a little heavier.
I feel like it was a little heavier.
To cater to the sweet tooth
to like consumers.
Of our patrons.
But it's also your preference too. If you try half a 1/4 ounce and you don't like it, and maybe you need another extra 1/4 ounce, so it's a 1/2 ounce.
Okay. So to prepare a mint julep, there's a couple of things. I think some people sometimes don't tackle this drink because of a little bit of the prep and the lore around it, right? We have some beautiful julep cups that we can use. These are Stefan's. They're, I think, actual silver plated, which is really nice. I don't own anything this nice yet. You can get these little guys off of any online retailer probably. Or if you don't have a julep cup, you can use an old-fashioned glass. Perfectly acceptable to do so. So the julep involves a couple of new techniques. One, there's a glassware, sort of a traditional glassware that we haven't used before. Two, there's the muddling of the mint, which we should talk about. And three, there's the ice and the creating of the crushed ice. Pro tip, if you're near a Sonic restaurant, I don't know where they are, how far across the United States they are. Do you guys have Sonic in your... It's like a drive-through burger joint where you can like drive up to the window. If it's just a California thing, then I'm just speaking to the Californians, you can go there and buy pebbled ice. That's what we did. That's totally what we did, which we have. But if you don't, you can also use a Lewis bag and a muddler for crushing your ice. The Lewis bag it's canvas. It's not even treated in it, is it?
I don't think so. It's just a heavy-duty canvas bag, and that its basic function is to kind of wick away the moisture when you're crushing the ice. But you can also use, what do we say, not like a dish towel, but like a linen towel, something that doesn't absorb too much moisture, so your ice isn't wet going into the glass.
Yeah, so you can have like, you don't want to use this kind of a terry towel that has like all these little things on it. You want to use one of those, you know those kitchen towels that are totally not absorbent, that you hate drying your hands on because they don't take the water away. That's what you want if you don't have a Lewis bag. And you just put the ice in there and kind of fold it over, and then you whack at it with a muddler. So we'll get to that demo in a bit. Why don't we just get started and make this one with the pebbled ice, so that we can get a drink in somebody's hands, and then we'll do a demo of the Lewis bag in a minute. If you are using the Lewis bag, you just want to kind of whack it away until you break those pieces down to kind of smaller bits. They're not going to be uniform. That's okay, as long as you've got some smaller pieces. Diane says that she used her Vitamix to make her ice. So you can also use a blender.
Oh.
You can use the ice shaver. If you shave it a little too small, it might dilute more quickly. So that's just one thing to consider. John got penny pound pebble ice.
It's also an option. So I just used 2 sprigs of leaves. Put it into the bottom of the glass. And then I'm going to start with a 1/4 ounce of Rich Simple. And then you're going to take your muddler and just kind of press the mint leaves. So you're basically pressing the oils of the mints out into the liquid.
Yeah, and we're using a wooden muddler. You can use any kind of muddler. If you don't have a muddler, you can use, sometimes some bar spoons have like a little muddle end on the back of their spoon you can use. You can also use any kitchen tool that has sort of a long flat, sometimes the end of a wooden spoon if you don't have a muddler, but we definitely recommend a muddler. And I think that the muddling technique is something that I think people take for granted sometimes. We've had lots of conversations about this over the years as we were designing muddlers. And so one of the things that we like about the muddler that we make is it's a nice flat surface. When you find those muddlers that have like the jagged edges and that sort of thing, it's going to like really dig into your mint and rip and tear and macerate, and you don't want that. With mint, you want to be a little bit more delicate.
Yeah.
And just press it to sort of release the oils, but not shred it to bits. One, because it'll get all up in your drink and then up in your straw.
Yeah.
But two, it releases like the more bitter chlorophyll elements of the mint as opposed to just the aromatic oils. So that's Muddling 101. We'll have a nice little in-depth video on that later this month. All right, back to Meghan.
All right, so I just put the 1/4 ounce of Rich Simple with the mint leaves. Now I'm going to put 2 ounces of the Woodford Reserve.
So good.
Some crushed ice in there.
Tom, we'll do a demo on the mint in an old-fashioned glass, so you can see it through the glass as opposed to in a julep cup.
So I'm just going to give this a quick little stir. Get the bourbon and the simple and the mint all mixed in there.
So she filled the ice up to not quite the top.
About 3/4 of the way. Also, I wouldn't pull too much of the mint up. You're just wanting to kind of integrate the ingredients. Because the more you pull it up, then you might get one in your straw.
And then this is such a beautiful drink because the finishing touch is to create this beautiful mound of crushed ice on top.
I just switched my my scoop for that.
Move this out of your way.
It's a little messy, but still looks good. And then you get a nice big bouquet of mint sprigs. Give it a nice slap to release those oils. Just garnish like so. There you go.
We like a nice big hefty bit of mint. You could, if you have a scarce supply of mint, you could just do one little sprig. But I think the more mint, the more like presentation worthy that garnish, and the more aromatics you get. That is a beautiful cocktail. So that's your basic mint julep. We're gonna dive into some of the details. We're gonna do some demos. If you are still working on yours and you want to wait until we do some more in-depth demos, totally fine. We've got the full hour. And I think I wanted to note that some of the mint julep recipes we've seen and that are popular call for a full 3 ounces of bourbon, right? That's how I think we started first making mint juleps, and it was a punch in the face. So if you want a nice sessionable cocktail, that's one of the reasons we recommended the 2 ounces. But I wonder if that's because people are like, it's a lot of work to make this. I'm just going to put a full 3 ounces in. Do you think that's a...
That too, and I think maybe because the crushed ice, it's smaller bits, so it's diluting the drink a little faster. And then if you're enjoying it, on a hot summer day, it's going to, of course, melt faster, so you want it to last longer. But yeah, I would start with 2 and then go from there.
Yeah.
See what your tolerance is.
If you want to have more than one mint julep,
if
maybe...
you want more than one, definitely start with 2.
Yeah, so we had a request for Diane to put in the comments how you make crushed ice with your Vitamix, because Daniel says they always end up with wet snow cone level ice. So I'll let Diane answer that. Oh, she already did. There you go. Put it on number 10, do some quick pulses, barely press the button, and then release as soon as it turns on. So you just don't want it to get blended to the blended status. Let's do, John used 2-to-1 Demerara syrup, so that sounds great. Daniel wanted to know if this would benefit from gum syrup. You want to talk a little bit about sweeteners, and I'm going to grab a glass to demo the muddling of the mint.
Of course. Yeah, I think you can use any type of sweetener, really. You can even use a liqueur if you want to add like a punch of flavor, or like a citrus note, or like a peach liqueur would be nice. You just want to add some type of like a sweet element. So yeah, anything. Doesn't have to be simple syrup, but that's the traditional way.
Right? Okay, so something sweet, a gum syrup that would be like nice and like kind of add that viscosity to it.
In that case, I probably would use a 1/4 ounce of the gum syrup.
Okay. And then would you drink it through the straw or just get the drink right in your face? It's interesting. So I think most of these are served in a straw. There are also specific straws called julep straws. I think we have one in the bar. That one is the one with the little, this guy. It's got these little, if you want to get real fancy, you can get a julep straw like this, which actually has these little perforated holes in it. So you can get the liquid up, but it keeps anything that's in the drink, specifically like mint bits in the drink and not in your straw. So that's a fancy little contraption. But then the other thing is, like, let's talk about the julep strainer. Because doesn't that come from the time when people were drinking juleps and they didn't want the ice to, like, fall on their faces?
That's true. Yeah.
So these guys here, you don't have a straw. you can use a julep strainer, put it in there, and then use like a sieve that keeps the ice in, or like a strainer that just keeps the ice in the glass, and then you can drink that way, right?
I think it's great
It's a fun drink.
Drink from the straw, though, because you get that whole bouquet of the mint, and it's like up in your face, and you get to that sensory experience while you're drinking the drink. So,
well, I'm abstaining from alcohol right now, so would you like to enjoy this beautiful cocktail? Otherwise, we definitely have a producer over here who will take the next one.
Very good. Ooh, I haven't had a julep in a really long time.
It's been a while, right?
Nice.
He stole it.
Nice reintroduction.
Tom says, if you were doing this for a crowd someday, could you make a mint simple syrup to forgo muddling?
Of course. Mm-hmm. So we actually were just talking about that. So this mint is beautiful, lively, but you were also talking about the mint that you were keeping in the fridge. Mm-hmm. So mint typically, when kept right, will keep for a couple weeks. When it's on its way out, you can lengthen its life by making a syrup out of it. I recommend boiling water, putting the leaves down in the boiling water for about 10 to 15 seconds, and then shocking it with ice. After that, basically remove the stems, put it in a blender, and then fine strain it. And that syrup will keep for about 2 weeks.
So do you immerse the whole mint in, including the leaves, in the boiling water?
Yes.
When we're making
boiling water.
A syrup.
So for like 10 seconds.
Okay.
Then you immediately shock it in ice, so it slows down that process.
So you're like blanching the mint.
Blanching.
Right,
basically.
to use a cooking term, you blanch the mint, arrest the cooking process by putting it in an ice bath.
And then you blend it.
Use that Vitamix.
You can, use lots of different uses for Vitamix. And just rip the stems off. Throw it in cold simple syrup, blend it, and then fine strain it. And you'll get this beautiful, vibrant green mint simple, and it will last for 1 to 2 weeks in the fridge.
Okay, great.
And you can just use that. I would use like a quarter to a half ounce of that in any cocktail that calls for mint.
Oh, that's great. So there you go. You don't have fresh mint on hand, but you do have some
mint simple.
Mint simple. I wonder if that would. I always think about those things, and I think, am I sacrificing some of the fresh mintiness, or like the fresh aromatics? But I think that's one of the cool things about syrups is they're designed just the same way that jams and preserves were created to preserve those fresh summer flavors throughout the winter. I think that's the same thing. It's like you're putting this basically sugar. You're making a liquid jam to preserve that mint flavor so that you can have it. What did the hand place the julep on? I don't know. That was Sean. He took that away. Let's show you muddling mint. And I have this nice glass. So if you want to do that, then I'll do the whack away at the ice demo.
So make another traditional julep.
Sure. Oh, do you want to do should we do a variation?
Do a variation.
We're almost at the top of the hour. So we'll muddle the mint and do a tutorial, and then we'll show you a mint julep variation between, and we'll show it in this glass so you can see how beautiful this looks. Oh, he put it on, there you go, on a photo turntable. It's a lazy Susan for taking pictures. I do have the simple. And so why do you add the simple syrup instead of just muddling the mint as is?
Well, you need some kind of, I guess, lubricant to...
A lubricant?
Yeah,
to like receive the oils?
Yeah, something, basically you need a carrier for the oils. So you need some kind of liquid in there. You can put the bourbon in there as well.
But it gets a little splashy, right?
Mm-hmm. So I just like to start with the simple and then add the bourbon. Okay.
Because when if you're muddling fruit for a cocktail, you don't need to add a bunch of stuff because you're kind of just pressing the fruit and those fruit juices sit in there. But that makes a lot of sense. You put the simple in, and she's just pressing very gently, using a beautiful.
Using some kind of force, but
that's true.
I'm not like
Yeah,
getting in there.
Yeah. You don't want to do that. And so they're looking a little like they're looking.
You can smell it.
So good. And so they kind of they darken a little bit as the what is it, the cells in the leaves are condensing and pressing and releasing those oils. But you can see they're not like shredded or ripped to bits. And then that syrup is acting like that receiver of the oils. It smells amazing. I'm sure you are all smelling it too. So this variation, can you talk about this variation? Because I was so excited when you suggested it.
Oh, so we were talking about Mint Julep variations, and I was like, why don't we do a Amaro julep? So this one we're going to do a split base of Averna, and then we're going to do, I don't know, do you want to do a rye or a bourbon?
Sean, what do you want? What do you want to drink?
I love the rye variation. Sounds
Rye?
fun.
Okay.
We're going to do rye.
So we'll do a split base with Averna, and I think we'll use, looks like we have some Russell's rye right here. We'll use that. And it's basically the same build as a traditional mint julep. So I started with the simple syrup, and I'm going to add 1 ounce of the Averna. And then we'll put 1 ounce,
Which is delicious,
of the Russell's.
So it's basically just splitting the 2 ounces of bourbon into 1 ounce of an Amaro and 1 ounce of a whiskey. This is where you get to have fun and play.
Mm-hmm.
All of you who have those, the dozen bottles of Amari that are waiting to be used for something, just pick one and then decide, what you think that would work well with. If you want some more spiciness, you can choose a rye. If you want to bring out some sweetness, you can choose a really sweet bourbon. And now you can see what's happening because we're not using a julep glass. This is that combining to make sure it's all nice and combined and chilled before you mound up that ice.
This also adds like more depth of flavor. So this particular Amaro also does kind of have some herbaceous notes to it, like minty notes. So it pairs perfectly with the mints. I think we can add some more. Oh, it's beautiful mint.
It's so beautiful. And we have more. Oh, and I'll show you. When we're done here, a great way to store mint in the fridge to help it last. That's gorgeous. See, you don't need a julep cup. Look at this beautiful cocktail. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Okay, so 1 ounce Amaro, and then we use a 1/4 ounce of simple, right?
Rich, not mangled. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's that variation for an Amaro julep in the chat. Feel free to make that for a second. And then it's just, I think it's a really fun template to play with.
Mm-hmm.
As you can swap out whiskeys, you can swap out Amari. We were talking about Averna, which is one of the Amaros that we recommend. It's just like a really nice, it wasn't too sweet and delicate. It has some bold flavors. Yeah. And so that'll hold up to a drink with a lot of pebbled ice as that sort of ice dilutes over time, right? Mm-hmm. And so one of the things to think about as you're selecting a spirit or an Amaro is what's kind of got a little bit of punch or a little bit of kick, because you want it to start off kind of strong, knowing that this drink is going to mellow out as the pebbled ice begins to dilute. Hold on a sec, you guys. What is going on? Okay. We had we had an audio that started happening. Okay. I blame it on Sean. He said that that's okay. So we'd love to hear from you all. What are your juleps tasting like? This is a great time when we can pause and just take a moment to say, like, did you run into any challenges when you were making a julep? Is there something that didn't quite end out, like, result well for you? And so do you want to ask Meghan here, who's our expert, or me, who's kind of not made a ton of juleps, but really enjoys them and did a lot of reading about them. What do you want to ask us in terms of spirit selection, having to do with ice, dealing with mint, muddling. We're dealing with a lot of new techniques here. I'm curious to hear if anyone had any troubles with creating the ice that they wanted, and if they wanted to try again or try a different method. This is a great place to ask any questions. Please don't be shy. No question is too simple because everyone starts somewhere, and we're all at different places on our cocktail journey. So let us know. And we'll start off with Daniel. He says, do you want to avoid or lean into an Amaro that already has a bit of minty flavor? That's a great question.
That is a good question. I think I would lean into something that has a little bit more of a bolder flavor, not necessarily mint, but also maybe that has a higher sugar content as well. Good.
They're tasting it off camera. It's really good.
Yeah, like I wouldn't do a Fernet Menta or something like that. I think that would just be overkill. But something herbaceous and bold that's going to hold up in that drink. But also with the pebbled ice, you have to think of dilution too. Mm-hmm. So definitely not something not a delicate spirit. You have to think of like bolder spirits in this case.
Okay, cool. Great question, Christina. Christina and Daniel are a fun couple that come and do live streams as a couple. But it's sometimes Christina with the comments. And then I think we had a good mention from John Schmidt. He said with juleps he likes to use an overproof base spirit. And so when you're thinking about proof, I think for the same reason, because it's one that will dilute, starting off with like a stronger bourbon or a rye that has a little bit more kick to it is probably a good idea. If you start out with a really low proof one, it just might be a little lackluster, right? And John's only challenge was picking mint in a thunderstorm.
Wow.
This
Courageous.
guy's committed. And then John Park asked the question, do you vary your simple syrup ratio for different bourbons based on the sweetness of the spirit that you're selecting? I would tend to say potentially, right?
I guess, yeah, if you were using a higher proof spirit, maybe you make it a little bit more richer. But I think across the board, I think it comes down to your ratio. So that quarter to half ounce ratio is what you're looking at.
Okay. And if you try it and you make it one way and it's just too sweet, just dial down the simple syrup. Or choose, maybe choose a rye instead of a bourbon, since bourbons tend to be sweeter, right? Or add more ice. More mint sprigs all the way. How would you modify for friends who are not fans of drinks with strong alcohol? It's a great lead-in to making a non-alcoholic cocktail.
That is a good question.
Sometimes it's drink selection. Right? Like sometimes you just say like, this is a really spirit-forward drink.
This is a spirit-forward drink. There's not really a way, traditionally there's not really a way around it. I think using the split base can tone it down a little bit and lower the ABV. So if you are using an Amaro, that typically has a lower ABV than like a bourbon. And bourbon typically has a lower ABV than like a rye. So I would try to use the spirits with like a lower proof if you're easing someone into this drink.
Yeah. If you wanted to make, there were a couple of drinks we talked about for potentially doing a non-alcoholic, and we just couldn't get the berries together for a berry version. But you can also do something like a highball that kind of looks like it, and you can throw some mint in there. This is a little bit, so this is not a totally non-alcoholic beverage. It is a vermouth sort of, I don't know what you call it, a vermouth highball, a vermouth spritzer. And you can just, for your friends, can you top that off with some crushed ice? This is how easy this is, right? So this one is a low ABV version. Very low. Sometimes we call these drinks shims because they are so low ABV it almost like isn't quite an alcoholic cocktail. And then you can just fancy it up. Why do we do this to the mint?
To release the oils. So you get that beautiful bouquet of mints in your face.
So we've
without
got,
tasting it.
you know, a really nice, beautiful, strong mint julep, and we've got a little vermouth highball. What would the specs that you would use for? What would be the specs for this one that you would use?
With vermouth,
Mm-hmm.
I would use probably 1.5 ounces to 2.
Mm-hmm.
Fill the glass with ice and then top it with soda.
There you go. And if you want it really low ABV, like I'm drinking it, you could just do like a half or like up to a 1 ounce of vermouth, which is just going to be a really nice mellow, and then mostly spritz. But it's just something different for folks who are not drinking a lot of alcohol or hard spirits. And this is beautiful and delicious, and it makes me feel like I'm drinking a fancy cocktail, because it is. So those are some recommendations on that. All right, what are y'all using?
Like a mint simple to that.
Right?
Like a little splash, like a tiny splash. I think that'd be really good.
A mint simple in there. I could have muddled the mint before we did that. Like, you can play around with that. Very, very easy. Todd said he made handmade crushed ice with a freezer bag and bashing it with a metal citrus strainer, and it sort of works.
Okay.
We talked about that right before the live stream. Is can you use like a plastic bag, like a zip top bag or something like that? And as long as you don't bash it so hard that you're like tearing the bag apart and bits of plastic are getting into your drink, because if you've ever used plastic bags for crushing things like making homemade panko crumbs, sometimes that happens.
Sure. Yeah.
But the benefit of using like a linen towel or a canvas bag is that it actually helps to wick away some of the water. And a plastic bag, one of the things you might end up with is a little watery ice, maybe a little slushy, because it doesn't have that wicking quality that the fabric does.
Then you would just probably need to strain it before you put it into your drink, so you don't have a watery.
Yeah. Or do it really fast and not in really hot weather.
Right.
We have people talking about bourbons. Burgeon's using 90 proof Elijah Craig. Let's see. John's using Pinhook bourbon for the first time, and it's delicious. Pinhook is one of those spirits I especially appreciate. The Pinhook rye is really good. It was at Trader Joe's for a while.
Oh, wow.
It
really?
wasn't. And then it's like $10 more at Bevmo. But it was beautiful.
It's pretty hard to get right now, especially in the Derby season.
I think we have some Pinhook under there. Unless I drank it all before I got pregnant. Are you allowed to drink this if you aren't wearing a seersucker blazer and spectacular shoes? Absolutely. You can wear a farmer's hat and overalls for all I care. It is interesting.
This is definitely like when I think of this drink, I don't necessarily think of the Kentucky Derby. I know that's what it's been associated with for so long. This is definitely like summertime, sit on your porch, sip and enjoy kind of cocktail. It's not, it has no pretentiousness surrounding it.
And that probably leads us a little bit into a discussion of history. So we're going to talk about history a little bit. Keep putting your comments in the chat, and I'll try to pay attention to them and not miss them. But if they're way up there, just post them again and I'll find them. Yeah, that can be yours. You enjoy that. It's good, huh?
I like it with the Amaro.
I'm kind of jealous. I love Amaro-based cocktails, and I love Averna. So with the mint. So the mint julep is it's just a variation of a julep, which is really, you were telling me about juleps. Why don't you tell them about
just
juleps?
Essentially a cocktail on ice with some sort of spirit and sweetener. Doesn't necessarily, crushed ice specifically, doesn't necessarily have to be a mint julep.
And in fact, Jerry Thomas in one of his books called out like a mint julep and a gin julep and a cognac julep and a bunch of different juleps. And so that's another way that you could vary this is you can just pick another spirit. I bet a rum julep would be absolutely fantastic.
Oh, that'd be really good, yeah.
And go really well with the mint too. That would be really nice for you rum lovers out there. And so that was part of it. But I think that julep actually, like there's an interesting history. There's a lot of different little tidbits that we found. I think the julep showed up as early as the 1700s in a medicinal recommendations book. And it was recommended, cocktails back in the day were often recommended as medicinal remedies. Go home and drink a hot toddy and sleep in bed. And so the julep was with mint was recommended to cure some ailments back in the day. And then also originally was potentially made with cognac
Mm-hmm.
until
the blight in France, where they couldn't get any more grapes, so cognac wasn't being produced. So then they switched to bourbon or rye or whatever spirit was available in the States at that time.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the reasons why it became known as sort of like a bourbon cocktail is because it went through the United States, and then it just for some reason like took hold in Kentucky and in the South.
Yeah.
Maybe because it's just this beautiful sit on your porch, drink kind of summer cocktail, right?
Mm-hmm.
So John says he thinks of a humid summer day.
Perfect.
And the other John says he's craving a brandy julep.
Ooh.
So make a brandy or a cognac-based julep. That would also be a fun one to do a split base with. You could split base bourbon and cognac. And you could add a lime, and it's a mojito julep. Why not? It's fun. And it's fanciful, and it's delicious. What else do we want to cover history-wise? Those are all like the top level things.
What did I see? I
really
also
down
read that it was like not necessarily a breakfast cocktail, but a morning cocktail. So I mean, it makes complete sense. It's the mint, the fresh mint, the herbaceousness of it will wake you up.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the kick of booze in there. It's very iced down, so you get that, and a little bit of sugar too, so it wakes you right up.
Yeah, I think I remember reading something like that too. It was probably a couple years ago. I'm not remembering when, but it was about it was about the history of the time before Prohibition. Like one of the things that led to Prohibition is that we just had this 100 years of drunkenness in the United States, right?
Yeah.
And I think they referenced specifically the mint julep as one of those cocktails where people would roll out of bed and get 3 ounces of booze in the morning. And that was
fresh mint.
Fresh mint. It's green.
It's your green drink.
It's good for you. So it's just a fun cocktail. I think most people associate it with the Derby because the Derby's done a really good job of branding themselves around the mint julep, and we just thought it was a fun opportunity to do that. But it has actually been the official mint Derby cocktail. I think we're on the 147th.
Oh wow, really?
Derby to take place in the U.S. And so I'm trying to find out where that was. Yeah. It was, and so it's got a rich history here in Kentucky. You'll find it probably at any racetrack where they're racing horses and that sort of thing. So if you have a fancy hat, you can put that on and feel real fancy. We decided to let the cocktails be the fancy parts today because they're just so beautiful. We didn't want to distract from their beauty.
Of course.
What are the questions you have? And, haha. John says there's a whole category of eye-opener cocktails. Watch The Thin Man for a fun take on them. Eye-opener cocktails. There you go. There's your cocktail homework for the weekend. Is go rent The Thin Man and look at all the breakfast cocktails that people roll out of bed to drink and start their day. Does anyone want a demo of the Lewis bag usage? If so, we're going to knock away, and we're probably going to make Sean mad because it's going to be really loud.
We'll try to smack away from the mic.
So let's do it. I think we should do it. We're going to clear our space. There it is. I just did it for you. It happens.
It's my fault.
Sean likes to take the blame for everything that happens in our bar. At least everything that is not so fun. All right. I didn't break any glass, so that's good.
All right. Want me to load it up?
Let's load it up. So this is a beautiful, super simple canvas Lewis bag. The Lewis bag is made as just it's basically a little envelope that you put your ice into, and it has a flap that folds down.
I'm going to do about a scoop and a half.
Yeah. Yeah, John says we need some noise because we didn't get the ASMR of the stirring yet.
Oh.
Okay, so then you fold it over. I'm going to place it here on your bar top or wherever it is. And then you're going to whack away. We actually
Fold
have.
it over like this too.
Thank you. I haven't done this in a while. If you want to get real fun, you can go and buy like a big ice mallet, like this. Sean's brother actually, he didn't. I don't think he made this one. He makes like an even bigger one. It's like the Thor hammer for hammering ice. And then you just kind of, but you can also use a muddler. You can use a wooden spoon, but you want something with a little bit of heft that's gonna really like break that ice up and not like hurt yourself while you're doing it. What should we use? Sean wants us to use the giant muddler. You ready? Close your ears.
Go.
So it's already going down on this side, and so I'm going to move my muddler over to the other side and just whack them all, and then we'll check on it.
Just get out all
So
your
loud.
frustrations.
It actually is really, it's very therapeutic. You can also turn it over and kind of feel
Get
for
all
the
sides
feel
of it.
for the high spots and just.
I think it's dead.
Oh no, it's so fun! I want to keep going. Okay, let's check.
Let's see what we got.
Hey, that looks pretty good.
That's good.
It's kind of It's kind of shardy.
I think that means something else.
Okay, there's like lots of ice shards,
Shards.
as in like the shards of glass. But let's see what this looks like. Should we use a scoop?
My little scoop?
Let's use a scoop. Otherwise, I'm going to dump it all over the bar. All right. Oh, see?
Pretty good.
It's a little bit more on sort of the. I maybe overdid it a little with some of the smaller bits. You see really, really, really fine ice sticking to that, but it's going to be beautiful. I think that since we made this crushed ice, we're going to have to make another mint julep.
Should we make one with, want to do another variation?
Except now the mint, now it's in the, we didn't muddle
That's all right.
the mint first. But we can transfer it over into this one. Yeah, let's do another variation.
All right.
You want to pull something out of your hat?
Sure.
How are you going to mix it up this time,
I don't
Megan?
know. I'm thinking maybe something with rum this time.
Oh, okay, we're going to do a rum
So if
one.
you want to find some rum for me,
What kind of rum?
maybe like a nice funky Jamaican rum would be really good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it on this side, Sean?
Yeah, it's on your left.
Oh, there's the garbage. I'm going to find the rum. We've got plantation pineapple rum.
There's Diplomatico in there too.
We've got Diplomatico.
It's a dark bottle.
All I see is
I'll
Bailey's.
start the
Okay.
muddling process.
Here's that pinhook, you guys.
Oh, delicious.
See, I'm saving that much until I have the baby, and then it's going to be for me.
Bring it into the birthing room.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
There we go.
All right.
Okay.
And maybe I'll use a different sweetener this time.
Sure. What do you want?
What should we use?
We have liquor 43.
We have orgeat.
Yeah,
We
orgeat.
have raspberry.
Something fruity.
We have that
Raspberry.
Let's do
raspberry.
a raspberry.
Raspberry syrup.
Mm-hmm.
Fresh stuff.
Sounds delicious. Fresh mint.
Delicious.
I want to make this a little sweeter, so I'm gonna do a half ounce on this.
Okay. We're going to do a half ounce. This is the fun part of cocktails is
Yeah.
what do you got?
Improvising.
And what do you want to make? And if we were doing this in order, we would probably wait to pound the ice,
Pound the ice.
until after
You
we
want to pound
muddled.
some more while I'm.
Sean, are you gonna be sad if I pound some more ice?
Why would I be sad about that?
I'm gonna dump this ice since it's starting to get a little slushy in there.
That's
And
enough.
I'll save this. You want to use some
I'll
of
use
this?
that.
You're gonna use it? It's not too melty?
You know what? I'll demonstrate with a julep strainer how we can sieve out the water.
Yeah. So Daniel says second vote for Lermont. falernum. I don't think we had any falernum. We had orgeat, which is like really nice and almondy. All right, we're gonna bang away on this some more.
I'm gonna muddle away on this.
After that, is it gonna bother you if I do this at the same time?
No.
Okay.
I'm almost done.
I'm gonna use a muddler this time, and I'm gonna try not to make it so small. Learn from the first experience. Jeez. I'm going to use the ebony muddler because I'm making indentations in my maple muddler. Yes. Yes. We have an ebony muddler in our bar. The Dancing Jigger. That could be the name for our next album. I think a little more.
A little more?
There's some pieces that were just a little too big.
Ice or
No, I needed to bang it a little more. There we go. Yeah, see, that ebony muddler does not take any dents. All right. There you go, madame.
Thank you. So this time I actually did put the simple and the spirit together with the mint. Switched it up a little bit. You might need a little bit more.
I'm going to use some of this stuff at the top.
Okay. I'll strain the water out.
So she's going to strain, since that ice was sitting there for a minute, she just strained the water out to make sure there's nothing at the bottom. Todd says, what's the opposite of ASMR when it's just loud noises? I did pretty good. We did pretty good with that.
Let's see.
The fun thing about crushing your own ice at home is, look at that. It's not that uniform, pebbly. Like, it has some of that, like, handcrafted, homemade quality to it. Some good character.
Is this the last cocktail we're going to make? I might as well use all the mint.
Use all the mint. Use it up. Make it really pretty.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, muddling is also a beautiful way to, get some aggression out at the end of a nice, long day. If you're one of those people that had, like, 7 meetings today, get out your Lewis bag. Transition to the evening. So this one, bespoke ice, absolutely. Well, I'm going to drop the specs for this too. Can you go over those one more time, Megan?
This one I did a 1/2 ounce of the raspberry simple.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, like 2 sprigs of the mint leaves. 2 ounces of Diplomatico.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Venezuelan rum. And then I just lightly pressed, topped with ice. That's it.
Beautiful. So this was a raspberry simple syrup that we made for the Clover Club cocktail, which we're going to do in 2 weeks' time. So you can just keep that in mind, is if you've got some left over after we do that cocktail, you can make a beautiful cocktail here. Are you going to taste it? You should taste it.
It's good.
It's good, huh?
Yeah. Nice and fruity. The raspberry syrup's really good.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
So
it goes really well with the rum. It's almost like tiki, like.
Yeah, we're not going to spoil the raspberry. We're going to do a tutorial on raspberry syrup in 2 weeks' time. But if you don't have that and you didn't want to spend the time making it, you can also just muddle some raspberries in the bottom. Mm-hmm. You can muddle anything that you want down there, and to add like a fruity element to your mint julep, which is another way to mix it up. So, Sean, you have a request to close down your aperture because the focus is too shallow.
Thanks, guys.
He says, thanks, Todd. So it is delicious. At least it does sound delicious. It smells delicious. Would love to hear any variations that you made and anything else that you found particularly fun about this cocktail or particularly challenging. I think that sharing in our successes and our challenges is a great way to realize sometimes you're not alone. And I'll be totally honest, I didn't make this drink at home very often. Like, it had to be a special occasion because it involves a little bit more ritual and presentation. And I think that that's one thing to consider when you're making cocktails at home, is some of the things that we featured are really easy and really simple, and they're designed that way so that you don't have to go through this whole production of making cocktails at home. I think quite a few people think that cocktails at home and good cocktails at home are a lot of work. And so they'd rather just, pop a canned cocktail or pour themselves a shot in a beer. And believe me, we've all been there. But there's something really special when you take the time to do something a little bit more ceremoniously. And whether that's because you want to have a party and invite friends over and watch the horse race, or because you have maybe some friends in town you haven't seen in a while, to make that a little bit more of a special experience and to elevate that experience, this is one of the things that you can do is choose an intentional cocktail and curate that experience for your guests, or just for yourself and maybe your partner, or just yourself if you feel like something special.
Treat
because
yourself.
We have to be kind to ourselves, as well as thinking about other people, and sometimes that ritual part of the experience just adds that little special extra touch that we love, to create better memories and better experiences. That's what I love about it.
I think so too. Yeah, especially if you're having people over and you're already cooking for them, so you're already adding that element. Make something a little bit nicer, and it's really not that challenging to make either. Like we just showed you guys, we made 3 variations, and as long as you have fresh mint. I like to see it with some other herbs too. It could be interesting. Maybe using like fresh basil or and
so
some kind of other like olfactory element to it.
Like
we did really good.
We did when we did the gin and tonic. Brian was on, and we did a Spanish gin and tonic. If you weren't here for that episode, that would be a great one to go back and watch, because we took a really simple cocktail like the gin and tonic, which I actually sometimes think of as a very functional. It's a functional cocktail. It's one of those ones where you go to the catered wedding cart, and you're like, if I order a gin and tonic, it's going to be hard to mess it up.
Right.
Like, we don't need people to have lots of specialty cocktail experience. But we took that gin and tonic and made it into, like, adding the aromatics and the spice and putting it in different glassware and creating some presentation around it just changes the entire experience. And I think it's a beautiful experience. It's one of the things
applies to this drink as well. Yeah,
we love here. Yeah, and as you could see, don't let not having a julep cup stop you from making a mint julep, because they are beautiful in the old-fashioned glasses as well. John says lemon verbena works well. That sounds great. Do you have that in your garden? Really, I'm curious. And bow to the east before spanking the mint.
Okay.
Is that part of your ritual, John? We've got just a few minutes left, so if you have a few more questions, drop them in there. I just wanted to show you and go over one last thing. This is mint that we have had in our fridge for how long, Sean? Like 3 weeks? Yeah. So we've stored this mint in our fridge for 3 weeks. And it's not, as beautiful and fresh. We've got a little bit of, there's some brown leaves coming on over here. This is the mint that Meghan was talking about. Would be really great to have used for a mint syrup or mint simple syrup. But the method that we use in order to achieve this, because prior to learning this, how do you store mint in the fridge? Mine would wilt, I think, within a week. And Stefan taught us this trick, which was when you're processing mint, and you want to store it in the fridge, then take a nice big healthy bunch of mint. Make sure you get all the raggedy edges and any brown leaves off, and then you want to pull any leaves that are stuck on the lower stems, you want to pull those off so that you don't have them sitting in the water. And so have a nice sort of good 1 or 2 inches of stems down here. Give it a nice fresh cut. Put some warm water in the bottom of a glass.
Not hot.
Not hot, because if it's hot, it'll start like turning the leaves brown and cooking them. So get a nice little set of stems. Give them a fresh cut. Put some warm water in the bottom of the glass. Drop your mint in there, and then cover it with some kind of plastic or cling wrap, so it's all around there. And then stick it in the fridge. And this mint has lasted for like 3 weeks. And
impressive.
I mean, some of this could even just very nicely go into a mint julep. It's shedding a little bit, so it's on its last week. But I was just been so impressed. Every single day I open the fridge, I'm like, this mint is still here, and it's still beautiful and fresh and lively, and green in this beautiful color. And what that does is it sort of like resets the mint's, cycle of vitality when you do that, and with the warm water and you give it a fresh cut. And then by covering it with a plastic wrap, it protects the mint leaves from the cold air that's circulating around the fridge, and so it won't dry it out. So that's a great tip if you have a lot of mint, if you have a huge growth of mint in your garden and you want to harvest it in advance because it's going to be thunderstorming for 3 days. You could do that, John, and you could put that in your fridge and cover it. You probably already knew this trick, but I wanted to share it because I thought it was really impressive. So, any last questions? This is your last chance. Meghan, this has been so fun.
Yeah.
I feel like we're
behind the bar tonight.
I know, and I feel like we both got our hair colored yesterday,
Fresh colors.
Feeling good. I have one last thing to mention. If you all did not come last week, we had an announcement that we did after last week's live stream, and I wanted to share it with you now. Is that the cocktail journey has been in sort of this beta testing rollout phase where we have not launched it publicly to people beyond those who are in the know and those of you who are here on the call and sort of some of our Stand and Spoon customers. But we are getting ready for our public launch on Tuesday. So next Tuesday, May the 4th, we will be presenting the cocktail journey as a project and as this experience. These live streams are part of that experience, but they're really just a segment of what we have planned. So I encourage you to go to thecocktailjourney.com and learn more, if you haven't already, about the different things that we're going to be presenting on Monday. We're going to be launching the cocktail journey via a Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign. Sean and I are not new to this. This will be our 5th crowdfunding campaign. It's the way that we crowdsourced all of our barware, things like this that you might have in your bar, or the mixing glass. And so we're so excited to share this project with a wider audience. Our goal is to get 1,000 members to sign up in 30 days to join us on the cocktail journey and expand this experience. And that will allow us to more robustly build out the education platform that we have, do more on-demand videos and tutorials in addition to these live streams, and then begin to build more community aspects into the things that we're doing. We've talked about Discord channels and community message boards and ways for you all to interact with each other a little bit more and with us. And so there are lots of possibilities. We're very excited about it. We invite you to come and join us. And then our next cocktail will be the margarita. Very appropriate for, Cinco de Mayo is right in the middle. So we're launching our Kickstarter on May 4th. And we got Cinco de Mayo. And then we're doing the margarita cocktail next Thursday with Brian Prugalidad, and I think Stefan's going to be here too. So we'll see you next week, and we'll give you a chance to enjoy your mint juleps. Make a 4th if you want to make a 4th. That's on you. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you all. Have a great weekend. Cheers. That one looks so good. It still looks so good. Look, you guys. Doesn't that still look beautiful? It's just like, it's so beautiful.
Well, now I get because I heard when you guys were drinking the rum one, you were like, I heard that